Well, it's telling me I'm live. That does not mean I'm live. So I'm going to wait for the thumbs up from Mike, who sat next to me. We counted this yesterday, didn't we? And it was 18 seconds. We had to wait 18 seconds. But I have confirmation that I am live. That means they can see and hear me, I presume. He's very quiet in the corner. You can say hello.
Hello.
Right, just to prove I'm not talking to myself.
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Right, so who's with us in the chat? Let me have a look. We had Jammy. We also had, we had a comment earlier, didn't we? And it disappeared. We had two, actually. So hello if you're in the chat. Hello to Joe and Jammy and Tracy and Mish. Who else have we got? Warren's there. And Andrew. And who else have we got? Oh, now, is that an Irish name? Isn't it Aoife? They can't hear you now. I've turned you off. But hello. Oh, first time to a live. Well, I hope you enjoy it. Right, first thing I've got to say is, yes, I will be saying hello to everybody at the beginning and getting settled in. If you are watching on demand, there will be timestamps down below, so you don't have to sit and listen to any of the waffle. But I think we can pretty much get on with it right now. Oh, it didn't autoplay for Jammy. Well, that'll be YouTube. Don't get me going about YouTube. It wouldn't end well. Let's just say that. Not having fun with YouTube, am I, at the moment? It's been a long time since I've gone live on YouTube. And if you follow me anywhere else, you'll know why. But let's get on with Scrivener Secrets. 7 features you'll wish you'd known from day one. Oh, I got it right. Aoife, I got it right. We have a lot of people at the church. There's Aoife, there's Ama. Oh, what's the other one? And I've been trained, but don't show me one that I don't know, and let me try and pronounce it. That wouldn't end well. I need to be guided. Bracket blind again. Poor Mike. They can't hear you, because they've turned your microphone off. But never mind. He's talking. Right. Let me know in the chat. Do you use Scrivener? And if you do, how long have you been using Scrivener? And what do you use it for? Right, let's get on. We are broadcasting in 1080p. Make sure you are receiving in 1080p because YouTube has a mind of its own. Now, while you're down there, there's a thumbs up button. Some of you have found it already, so thank you very much for that. It does make a difference with YouTube. Not as much as I'd like, but it does make a difference. So what are the 7 things I'll be talking about? I picked these as being, they're somewhat hidden, maybe not obvious, but if you leverage them, it can 10 times your productivity in Scrivener. So we will be looking at metadata. Snapshots is all to do with backing up, but it can be used for much more than that. Colours is the one thing I get so many questions about in terms of how do I turn the colour on in X place, because there's so many places that you can do it. Then we have view options. That's fun on a Mac. I've not tried it on Windows, but it's fun on a Mac, I can assure you. Then we have save views or layouts as they're known. I will be talking about templates, but probably not in the way you imagine, because there are 2 types of template, and one type of template is very, very well hidden, and I will be exposing that. And then I'll be talking about one of the best features in Scrivener, which is the Scratchpad. Now, I promised, you've probably seen the title, live demo and free gift. There is indeed free gift. This is a free gift. It'll save you making notes. Don't waste your time. I've got you covered with all of that. I'm going to put the link in at the end, and I'm going to put the link in at the end for a reason that is not the only free gift. There is a bonus as well. So that's why I'm putting it in at the end. If you have no idea who I am, I'd wonder what you're doing here. But if you don't, I'm Elaine Giles. I've been using Scrivener since 2006. Completely accidental, really, wasn't it, Mike? We got a Mac. We made the decision to buy a Mac. It was a bit random. And I stumbled across this application. It was completely free. It was pre-alpha. It didn't even make it to a beta. And I couldn't believe how amazing it was. And it's great to see that 19 years on, what it's matured into. So that's my history with Scrivener. But let's go and have a look at these 7 features that you need. Now, just one more thing before we actually look at them, which is Scrivener is cross-platform. Now, it is very, very Mac-based, and I am using a Mac. There are differences between the two, but I think pretty much everything I talk about will be the same, and I will point out where there are differences. Mike is sat next to me with his Windows laptop. I don't own a Windows machine, just in case there are any questions about it. But they are both on version 3 at the moment. I would say the fundamental difference is things like shortcut keys and things like that, but the majority of the features are the same. You can also use Scrivener on an iPad and an iPhone. They are very, very different. And although some of the features I talk about today are supported on those devices, I'm not demonstrating on those devices today. If you are new, if you are being under a rock, what's Scrivener? Well, as I've said, I've used it for a long, long time, and I absolutely love Scrivener because I use it for virtually everything. I write all my emails in it. I create courses in it. We run the podcast through it. Everything goes through Scrivener. If I had to describe it, it's a toolkit, but it's a specific toolkit for writers. So all of the features are there to help you create the written word. So the first thing we're looking at, metadata. Metadata is data about data. Now, you may use metadata elsewhere. If you take photographs, photographs have metadata. They have the time they were taken, the location they were taken, and pretty much everything else about how they were taken. In Scrivener, the main element that you will be working with is probably your text. And your text also has metadata. Now, when you make a document, maybe in Word, you might think, well, yes, my metadata is the title of the document, the file name that I give it when I save it, and it'll have a timestamp, and that's pretty much it. In Scrivener, your metadata isn't related to the file, it's related to the granular level or unit of content that you create, which is known as a scrivening. You may also hear that referred to as a document in the help file. But a lot of people say the Scrivener document is the containing document, so I use the term scrivening. A scrivening has lots and lots of metadata. This isn't even all of it, but this is some of it. So your scrivening can have a short synopsis. You can use that in any way you like. It doesn't have to describe what's in it. All of these are completely customizable. You can use the notes for whatever you want. It can have a title, can also have a label and status. And obviously, being text-based, it would have a word count. You can add comments to it. You can add links to it. You can track keywords with it. I'll give you a pro tip to get started, because I'm seeing that we've got somebody here who's never used Scrivener. So this could seem like complete overwhelm. Oh, good grief. I just want to put some text in a file. I don't want all of that. The one thing that tripped me up at the beginning was, it was like, this app is amazing. Let me have a look at all of the features. And I did. We have another one new to Scrivener here. Oh, wow. And what I thought was, I've got to understand each bit and I've got to use them all. Don't do that. Only use what's relevant for you. So the one that really had me scratching my head was keywords. What would I use the keywords for? What would they track? And in the end, I thought, why are you using keywords? You don't actually need it in this document. So that's the first pro tip. If you don't need one of those metadata elements, ignore it. Don't use it. But right now, let's go and have a look at Scrivener and its metadata. So I'm going to start off with a file, which is my Christmas Carol file. And I've used this quite extensively. That's not the right one. Hang on. It is the right one, if you're with me. It's Christmas Carol, but it's not the right Christmas Carol. There we go. It is that one, which is now open at the right place. So this was a file that I created. So I went to File, Create New File, and I put all of this in. I did, however, use a template to do it. So because we've got some people with us who are completely new, and that is racking up as we go, isn't it? I think we've got 3 or 4 at the moment. I'll just give you a quick view of the interface so you know what you're looking at. This is the full text of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This was created in a new Scrivener file, but I elected to use a template, and that template was the novel format. So if you were to go to File, New, you'd see New Project. And in here, you've got a tutorial that you can actually work through. You've got access to the manual, video tutorials. If you go to All, you will see all of the templates that you have here. So what I did in here was choose the novel template, and that was what gave me what I've got on the left-hand side. But you can see in here, there's so many different templates. Don't let that put you off in terms of, I don't know where to start. You can always start with a blank one and customize it in any way you like, and I will be doing that shortly. But because I've selected that, this is what I actually have. On the left-hand side, we have the binder. Now, the binder is like an outline to the content of the entire file. The top element here is just a scrivening. It is just one element of it. If you think of this as multiple text files, but navigatable by this bar on the left-hand side, what you're looking at here is just one of them. But the manuscript, the characters, the places, these are all folders. So if we go to the manuscript, this is the entire contents of this book. Now, at the moment, it looks like an outline. When I've clicked on it in the binder on the left-hand side, in the middle, which is the main area of your interface, it's an outline. But that's controlled by these three buttons on the toolbar. You can view the entire document, and a lot of people choose to work that way. Now it looks more like Word. Your dashed lines that you have here are indicating that this is one scrivening and this is another scrivening. So that's why those dotted lines are there. The other view that you have is a corkboard view. So you have these three views: scrivenings, which is all of the text, the corkboard, which as the name implies is a corkboard, and we have the outline view. It's all showing you exactly the same material, but in very different ways. So I'm going to leave that set to scrivenings at the moment and open up this folder in the binder. And you can see in here, when I move from scrivening to scrivening, it focuses on just the contents of that scrivening. Unless it's a folder, in which case I am seeing, because I've selected scrivening in here, I am seeing the content of all the scrivenings inside stave 1. If I open stave 1, you can see I can focus now on each individual scrivening. And there they are. Now, what I will show you, pro tip, this isn't one of the 7 tips. You're getting way more than 7 tips. But in this manuscript, yes, I can open it, but then I have to drill down. What you can do is if you hold the Alt key down, Option key rather, I think it's Alt on Windows, and you open that, it opens up every subfolder, so you can see everything in the binder, which means I can navigate from place to place. So if I wanted to make a change to the area of the bed curtain, so this is when he's seen the light, the last of the spirits, I can go straight to it. I've also got the end of it here, so if I want to see Fred's house, I can get straight to it. If I go back to, definitely didn't want to do that. I've put the novel format in there. So yes, you can move things around in here as well. But if I go back up here and I go to my corkboard, you can see even though it's open in the binder, I am focused on my folders in the corkboard. So that is what the corkboard is. It's for navigating. The main area in the middle is going to show you your content in one of 3 formats. And then on this side, and this is turned off by default, it is your inspector. So normally you don't see it. I always have the inspector showing, which is a sidebar that has in it my synopsis at the top and my notes underneath. Now for this, I don't use my synopsis or notes that much at all, but there are other files where I've got acres of information in the notes, and I'll explain why as we move along. But this inspector isn't just home to the synopsis and the notes. It also is home to your bookmarks. It is also home to your keywords, and you have custom metadata in there as well. It's home to your snapshots and your comments and footnotes. So the inspector is actually very important. That's why I have that showing all the time. So that is the interface part of this. But I was particularly going to show you metadata. So now we have something that you can see and hopefully understand where everything is. If I move across to an element here, so we'll look at the opening scene. I could have a synopsis of that. My synopsis is over in my inspector. So whatever I put in here, so this was establishing that Marley is dead. Establishing Marley is dead. That's the most important thing in this particular scene. So I put that in my synopsis. If I move to another scene, that disappears because what we're now looking at is the synopsis of this particular scrivening, which is Fred's visit. So again, I could put in there just enough. I mean, you can put as much text in as you like, but I would tend to put in enough so I know what it is. Now, the good thing about putting it in there, you might think, well, that's a waste of time. Because if I'm in this opening scene, I can see that it says Marley was dead to begin with. And if you don't understand that, the rest's going to make no sense. So why would I bother putting it over here? And the answer to that is because of the other views. So if I'm looking at Marley's ghost, you can see here, I've got text in there. So Scrooge's house on Christmas Eve. I've also got what I've just typed. But Fred's visit was blank, if you remember. It didn't have a synopsis. Well, what Scrivener is doing automatically is showing you the beginning text, so maybe a paragraph and a half, of what each scene is. And it's doing that for the good reason that in this corkboard view, without that, you might struggle to remember what everything was. Now, obviously, if you are, should I say pedantic here, Mike? I put a synopsis in when it's relevant. But if you want to put a synopsis in for the whole thing, if you are a planner rather than a pantser, flying by the seat of your pants, you might choose to do that, in which case you'd be seeing it in here. Now, in your outline view, you can see I do have here, under my first scene, the one that I typed in, establishing that Marley is dead. The others don't have a synopsis, and that's because they don't have a manual synopsis. And it could overwhelm your outline if it started to put a paragraph and a half in after each one. But everything in Scrivener is completely optional. And if you don't want to see that, you can right-click on the title and synopsis, and you can see that, yes, you've got the title showing. You've also got the synopsis and the icons. You could put numbers if you wanted. So if you wanted to see the numbers, this is in your third group, and it's scene 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9. So let's take the numbers away. But you can also choose not to see the synopsis. And now everything is neat and tidy and a really clean outline to what you've got. That was only one type of metadata. Other types of metadata is the notes. So if you wanted to put some notes in about this, you could do. And again, it would only apply to the scrivening that you have open. So if we've got Cratchit's Day Off and you wanted to put a note in there, so my new note, it would only show when that is selected. Move on to Scrooge's dinner and it disappears. Move back and there it is. You may at this point be thinking, well, what's the difference between the synopsis and the notes? I think of it this way. Where do I want to see the information? So, for example, I have a Scrivener file and it has in it the recording notes and show notes for every episode of the Matt Bites podcast. We don't really use the synopsis. And the reason for that is we put the show notes in the notes area. When I come to compile, which is Scrivener's term for export, I can say with those notes, don't export the contents of my file. So what that would look like in here is don't export this. Don't export the book. Export the information about the book, the notes about the book. And that is how we create our show notes. So all of the notes we use when we record are in the main scrivening. But when we come to export, we only use the notes. I've also made courses with Scrivener, and the synopsis contains the lesson summary. And I can run 3 different types of compile or 3 different types of export. And I can create a workbook which contains the majority of the information. I can export a summary of the course by using the synopsis. And I can export whatever I've put in the notes, which could be questions. And obviously, I'd have to put the answers somewhere. So that's your synopsis and your notes. But we're still not done. Down the bottom of here, you have labels. And labels have colours attached to them. So you can assign a colour to them. You can also assign a status. So this one says first draft. But if I'd done, I could set that to final draft. And again, that is meta information about the scrivening, the main area in here. We're still not done. No, we've got titles. So this bit that we have here, Cratchit's Day Off, or which we actually have here. So we've got Stave 1, which is Marley's Ghost. So it's telling you it's in that folder. And the scene is actually there, Cratchit's Day Off. That is also meta information. If you wanted to create a PDF of just your titles, your scene titles, you could do that because it's a specific kind of metadata. You also have word count. So down at the bottom, we've got 6,436 words. Yes, and what's that? Because it's not the whole book. No, if you wanted a word count for the entire book, you would select manuscript at the top, and it would tell you that it's 28,500 words. As you run through here, and you are selecting individual scenes, the word count will change to show you how many words in what you have selected, be that the entire manuscript, a folder, which in this case is a stave, which is another word for a chapter, or an individual scene. It will update and show you that. Now, the one that I struggled with initially with what I was doing was keywords. So if I bring up the keywords here are the keywords, you can see I don't have any because I don't particularly need any. But you might do. You might want to track something. So maybe the visitation of the spirits, or maybe scenes that Scrooge is narrating rather than scenes somebody else is. And you can put that in here. Now, somebody's just mentioned a family history book. That would be great. If you were tracking different families, you could have keywords for different families. So in here, we could have Scrooge, we could have Marley, and we could have the Cratchits, if that's what we wanted. So how you would actually do that, because I haven't got any keywords in here, is I'm going to add a keyword. Now, if I'm only tracking the families, then I could just put the names in. So I could put Scrooge, I could put Marley, and I could put the Cratchits. Like that. Actually, it's not Cratchits, is it? It's Cratchit. Right. So now I've got them in there. But you may decide down the line or straight away, that's great. I'd love to be able to work out who's in what scene, but I'd also like to track something else, maybe the spirits. In which case, what you can do, I created these with the first option, which was add a new keyword. And it says as sibling, which means these are all one level. But what I could do is add another one, which is families, and then move Scrooge and all the families into the families. That would enable me to track something else as well. So if what I wanted to track in here was point of view, who is creating this, then I can do that. And instead of dragging them around like you saw me just do then, I can actually use this second option here, which is adding a new keyword as a child of what is already selected. So if I go in there for point of view, I could put Scrooge. Now, I know I've got Scrooge twice, but, you know, he's in the Scrooge family as well, and hence it adding a 1. So what I could do with that is make absolutely certain that I know that that's point of view by putting point of view at the end. And I would then also make sure I've got the right one selected, add another one, and that could be the spirits, like that. And now I can apply these keywords. Now, what I've just done doesn't actually apply them. So let's go to Scrooge is definitely in Fred's visit. All right, so Scrooge is talking in Fred's visit. So I said in here, you could have keywords. And here are your keywords. So I can add a keyword in there. So let's, no, that's not spirits, is it? That's Scrooge. All right, so let's put Scrooge in there. And there is Scrooge. Now we also have, so if we say this families, if we extend it, so let's go to the families and add an element for Fred, which is Scrooge's nephew. What I can do from there is drag that across. And now I have meta information about that without actually putting any notes in what would be the transcript that I may choose to export. So that is the keywords. But as I say, if you have no use for any of these elements, just don't use them. And I didn't use keywords for a long time. I think in the MacBytes file, I use keywords if Siri says anything. And that way I can find Siri's bits quickly. But other than that, I wouldn't find much use for it in there. You could also use keywords if you wanted to track your progress. But think carefully before you decide to do that, because you have your labels and you have your status. So they would be better for that. But it's flexible enough that you can do whatever you like with it. In addition to keywords, you have comments. So you could highlight something and add a comment to it. You've also got bookmarks, you've got revisions, references. So there are lots and lots of metadata elements that you can add. Let me know in the chat what you're using your metadata for. So that is the metadata. Let's get back in here. And now we're going to move on and have a look at snapshots. Now, before we actually look at a snapshot, it's very easy to get confused about all the backup options you've got. Let's simplify that. You have two backup options when it comes to backing up your content. You have project backups. That is where you back up the entire file. And then you have snapshots that are much, much, much more granular than that. When you back up the entire project, you're backing up absolutely everything. Now, because of that, you may think, well, that's the way to go. I am always going to use project backups. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But knowing about snapshots gives you flexibility that project backups do not give you. So let's have a look at what I mean by that. Right, so in here, I could choose to back up this entire file. Now, there is backup options that you have. So it's opened that up on the wrong screen. Let's bring it into play. In your preferences, you have this backup tab. This is where you decide how you're going to back up. These are not snapshots. This is the whole thing. Back up the entire file. Now, I've got automatic backups turned on. And as you can see, I back up every time I close the file. I back up every time I do a manual save. I back up before I synchronize with mobile. I'm obsessed. I just make backups. I do choose to make my backups as a zip file, and that's because I don't want to synchronize with the cloud service and find that something inside my file hasn't synchronized. Now, that could happen because a Scrivener file is not actually a single file. It is a folder full of files, and when you're working with it, that's absolutely fine. But when you try synchronizing with the cloud can get confused. Whereas if I back up my zip, make my backup zip files, it's a single file and I can't lose anything. All of what you see in there is making a backup of the entire file. Because you can do that, why on earth would you ever need a snapshot? Well, a snapshot lets you be much more granular. So let's say in here, in the opening, we decide we're going to make a change. Now, obviously, I didn't write this, so it's not for me to change it. But what I'm going to do is just grab hold of this here, and I'm going to make a change to it. But before I do that, I want to make sure that everything as it is now is backed up. Just for this scrivening, not the whole file. So I move across to my snapshots, and in here, I'm going to make a snapshot of the opening. And I do that very simply by hitting that plus option there, which I've just hit twice. So let me just get rid of one. Right, there is my snapshot. It gives you the date and time of it. And it also allows you to give it a title. So if I go in here and put before changes, now I would expect you to make a much better title than that, but that's what I'm going to do. What I've got in here now is one snapshot, which is a copy of this scrivening as it is at the moment. So hence before changes. It has a title, and at the bottom, if I scroll this, it has all of the content that I currently have in the scrivening. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to grab hold of this and make a change to it. Now I'm going to make a change that is really obvious. I'm not just changing a single word or something like that. I'm going to change this so the text is red. So we've definitely made a change here. And I am also going to make that bold while we're at it. Right, so I have made changes. Now, to explain why this snapshot is a much better idea than having a backup of this, why it is actually better is if I go down to, let's say the next one, Fred's visit, right? And I want to make a change in here as well. I'm going to make a snapshot of this one. And again, this one is before I make any changes. So I'm just going to call it before changes. Right, then I'm going to make some changes to it. And the changes I actually make don't matter at all, but we'll make that blue and we'll make that bold so we can see we've got a change. Right, so I've made 2 changes in 2 different locations. If I now back that up, I will get a backup of the file as it is now. If I'd already made a backup, I would also have a second copy of that without these changes. So if I wanted to roll back into here, so let's say I'm not too sure about whether I want that red and bold. What I can do is make another snapshot and say this one was after my initial changes, so after changes. I've now got both of those safe and sound in this file. You can see that when I've got the after changes selected, you can see I've got my red text. That's why I made it really obvious what I'd done. And if I select my before changes, you can see that the text is not red. Now, obviously, if I had made a backup and I decided that I don't want this red, then I could throw away this file. I could get my backup, open that and carry on from there. But here's the problem. If I do that, I lose the changes I've made to Fred's visit. It's an all or nothing when you have a backup of the entire file. But what I can do in here is roll back this to the place it was originally and have absolutely no impact on this second scrivening. And that is why snapshots are amazing. So this is the before changes. What I can do is hit compare. So make sure that I've selected the before changes and then do a compare. And it will then compare that. That's the original. And it's comparing it. Now, what I want to do is actually roll it back. So with it selected, I'm going to roll it back. Now, it does explain what it's going to do. So it says it's going to roll this back and you will lose the current version. But why I don't have to worry about losing the current version is I've got an after changes snapshot as well. And you can have as many snapshots as you like. So as long as you describe them sufficiently, this warning isn't really a problem. So would you like to take a snapshot of the current version before rolling it back? No, because I've already done that. But belt and braces, in case you didn't do that, it prompts you. So it's actually quite difficult to lose something. You deliberately have to say no, which I will because I've already done it. So that has rolled it back. I still have a copy with the red text, but much more significantly is that in my Fred's visit, my blue text is still blue. If I had rolled back an entire file, I'd have lost that. And the problem is when you're working, you're probably going to be making so many changes in so many different places. Rolling back a backup is the last chance saloon, really. Other than that, I would make backups, but I would use snapshots and be more granular if I did need to roll back. Okay, do we have questions at that point?
We don't. But no questions.
Right, okay. Do put your questions in, put a cue at the beginning, and I will deal with those when appropriate. Right, okay. Let's move on to the next one. So the thing to remember there is that project backups are fantastic. Now, when a project backup comes into its own is when something happens to a cloud service or a device goes missing and you need to restore the entire project. So I would make project backups, but snapshots are better when you're working with content, but both of them are equally important. Luckily, I have a course coming soon, Bulletproof Scrivener Backups, which cover both of those in immense detail, so keep your eye out for that. But the third set of metadata secrets that we're going to look at is the colours. This is the one I get all of the questions about because there's lots of colours and they appear in lots and lots of places. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so colours. I don't have too much in the way of colours in here. It's all pretty bland at the moment. But if you were to look at one of my other files, you'd see colours all over the place. So what we will do here is start brightening it up a bit. Right, I'm going through these in no particular order other than it kind of makes sense to show you. So I'm going to the manuscript and I'm going to the corkboard view. And this is because the first place I'm going to show you colour is in the index cards themselves. Now, from here, you need to be in the right place to turn these on. So if I happen to be in my Scrivenings view and I went to the right place to view these, so I go to View and Corkboard Options, everything is pretty much dimmed out. I have got cards across and I have got these, but they're dimmed out as well. So I can't do much at the moment, and that's because I'm in the wrong view. As soon as I have the corkboard selected and I go back to View, Corkboard Options, they all spring to life. And the one that I'm interested in first is showing the label colours along the edges. So I've turned that on and nothing happens. For a very good reason. I haven't actually, this isn't random, I've got to tell it what colours I want them. So in this preface here, making sure I've got that selected, it's going to show the label colours. So down in the lower right, these are the label colours within this file. If I choose to make that one red, I now have a red stripe. If I go to my contents, and it doesn't matter whether you do that in the sidebar or whatever, but I'm going to keep it in here so we can actually see it. I'm going to apply a different colour to that. Let's have a yellow one on there. And this folder one, we'll put green on there. And you see all of these colours come through. So the colours themselves are dictated by the labels that you have in your file. You will notice here, if I open that up, there is an edit option at the bottom. And you can indeed go in there and edit those colours. You can even add extra colours. So if I wanted to add a demo colour here, I wouldn't want that necessarily the same colour. So double click on that and it opens this on the wrong window, but it opens it. And then in there, let me choose, let's have my RGB sliders. Should we have that an aqua colour? There we go, a nice bright aqua colour that has come through there. So I've created an extra one. Can then go to any of my Scrivenings, change the label to demo, and that colour comes through. When it comes to choosing colours, you'll see that colour's much deeper, and I also have in here another one for character notes, and that's bright red. All of the others, these are the default colours, are fairly pale, and there's a reason that they're fairly pale. In here, we've got the first one done. Let's go to the second one, which is back to View, down to Use Label Colour. No, we're not going to that one yet. Corkboard Options here. Are we on Corkboard Options? No, we're not. We are going to View and Use Label Colour in. And we're going to say Index Cards. When I do that, it changes the background colour of the index card. It leaves the stripe there. But as I was pointing out with the colours, let's make this one red, even though it's nonsensical. You can see that the deeper the colour, and it is deeper on the stripe, but the reason that they've lightened it up a little bit on the cards is so you can read the text on the cards. Originally, I used to have really bright garish colours, but I've toned them down a bit since then because of that. So that is your second option. So we've got the index card stripe on the left-hand side. We've got the index card background. The other place that you can see this is, let's go and choose one of these. And in our inspector, go to the synopsis. And did I put them? I did, didn't I? I put them on the groups here. So in here, this one is white. This one is white because there is no label. If I were to apply a label, it would automatically apply to the synopsis. I didn't actually have to do anything with that. I didn't have to turn it on. But that's because it's turned on and off with the same option. So if I go back to View and Use Label Colour in, the synopsis is the index card as far as Scrivener's concerned. If I toggle that off, it will take it back to white. It still has orange applied to it, which you can see at the bottom. You're just not seeing it. So this View Use Label Colour in index cards does two things. Now, that's great if you're working in corkboard view or you always have your inspector showing. But you can also apply your label colours elsewhere, including in the binder. So up to View and down to Use Label Colour in, and binder is an option. And when you do that, you get a little coloured dot next to anything that has a colour applied to it. So if we choose that portly gentleman and make that a demo, you can see the dot appears, and because we left the synopsis index card turned on, that changes colour too. That's quite neat and tidy, but for some people it's not really enough. When I'm making a course, I absolutely love watching that binder change colour. Everything is red when I start, like a pinky colour, like everything needs to be done. As I start working with it, I change that to in progress, which is a yellowy or orange. And when it's done, it goes green. And I love to see that binder go green. There was another option in here. So back to view, use label colour in. As long as binder is checked, you can also choose to show the background colour in the binder, and it means the whole binder. So it goes the full width. That used to be the default. It is no longer the default, as you can see, but when you have something selected, you get the dot as well, because that is actually turned on. And if you'd gone through and applied a label colour to all of these, you would see your progress, or whatever the colours mean to you, in that binder. But there's still a bit of the binder that doesn't have that colour, and that is the icon. So if we go back to view and down to use label colour in, icons is an option, and what it's referring to is the icon in the binder and somewhere else. So now you can see here, it would actually make sense to actually show it you better if we turn off the full width. Then you get the dot, and you can see that the icon is the colour of the dot, the associated colour. That's not the only place that has applied though, because it uses the icon in multiple places. The binder's one, and up here at the top of the scrivening is another. As I move, you can see the icon here is also a different colour. So that is the binder icons. Then we've got outline view. So if I was looking at my entire manuscript as an outline, you can see that my dots have appeared in here and my icons have appeared in here, because the dots and the icons, now the icons are showing here, the dots rather, are showing because this is a label. If you don't want to see the labels in there, you can turn them off. You can actually add a lot of other things like word counts and whether you want it in the compile or what the created date was, and lots of other things. If you choose to see the labels, so let's turn the labels on, you can drag these about, you will see the label. But you'll also see, because we had it turned on for the icon, that the icons are different colours as well. Don't have to stop there though. This is another place that I swathe it in colour. So I'm going up to view and down to use label colour in, and I'm saying outliner rows. And this way, I'm not seeing it in the binder as a background, but I am seeing it in the outline view. I do have that turned on. And the other place I have this turned on, let's go back to Scrivenings. Now you might have to see the titles here. Let's see what we've got. What I can do is go to view and use label colours in and choose Scrivenings titles. Now you don't see these automatically. You actually have to have your Scrivenings titles turned on, which I don't believe I do. So can we turn those on in here? It's one of these. There's so many options in Scrivener, but I do have one I did earlier, so I'll show you that. That's what I'll do instead. So let's go and have a look at that. The colours come from the label list. So if you start applying things and thinking, I've turned the colours on and they're not there, you need to have labels as well. Right, the places they were: the index card stripe, the background of the index card, which was also the synopsis background. Then you've got dots in the binder. You can have icons in the binder. You can have the binder background, which takes it the full width. Then you've got your outline rows. And I think you can see from this that those pale pastel shade colours do work a little bit better than something that's overly bright. And the last one is the Scrivenings titles, which I did have turned on in here. And this is useful when you are viewing your full manuscript and you have your Scrivening titles turned on. As you scroll through it, you will see the colours applied to it. Right. Do we have any questions at that point, Mike? Right, okay.
That Tracy would like clarification on.
Right.
The big caveat of Scrivener for me is it doesn't recognise or parse Markdown syntax, which is very important for web work of any kind. Please correct me if I'm wrong about Markdown, Elaine.
No, it doesn't directly. It supports Markdown in terms of you can type it in, but it isn't a Markdown editor. There's been lots and lots of discussion about that. Keith, who is the developer, made Scrivener for writers. Didn't decide which kind of writers, so fiction, non-fiction, but certainly not. I mean, I use Markdown all the time, so I feel your pain. That's one of my problems with it. You can force the output to be Markdown. So you can write it in rich text format and then choose to export as Markdown. But there is, I can't remember the last time I checked this because I got so upset with it. But there was, when I got my new Mac, which was 18 months ago, it's a Mac Studio with an Apple Silicon chip. My huge problem was when I came to export from standard Scrivener formatting into Markdown, it choked on it. It wouldn't do it. And it was something to do with the Apple chip. And I spent months trying to fix it and gave up in the end. So no, it's not the best editor for Markdown. You can write Markdown. Technically, you can export to Markdown, but probably not. There are other things that you can do to work around it, but they're pretty heavy-duty things. It's not really intended for that. They are working, Literature and Latte, the company who makes Scrivener, they are working on another app. They've not said what this app is called yet, but it's been in development for over 18 months. It's supposed to be, it's being described as a cut-down version of Scrivener that synchronises easier than Scrivener does. Now, my problem with a cut-down version of anything is they'll tell you that 80% of the users only use 20% of the features, which is fine, as long as we're all using the same 20%. Doubtless, what they decide to leave out is something that would be critical for me. But it could well be that that would support Markdown. I don't know. Something to think about. Right, well, we're moving on. My slides are stuck. There we go. Right, well, we're moving on to view options. Oh, this is fun. Now, the view options I originally intended to cover were just two, which was full screen and not full screen. But there's more to it than that. But we did used to have in Scrivener a full screen view. This goes way back to 2006. We now have two different modes for that. We have a full screen view and we have a composition mode. And you might think that's a bit redundant, but this came about because Apple, on Windows it's slightly different, but Apple decided to introduce full screen view in Lion. So Scrivener's full screen view was competing with the full screen view of the operating system. And Scrivener decided to call theirs composition mode. So ultimately that's what we'll be looking at, but I'm just going to show you some other features when it comes to views that you've got. You are not stuck with a Scrivener's main view, and that's it. If you don't want to see the binder, you can actually go up here and hide the binder. You've seen you can hide the inspector. So if you wanted to focus just on your content, you could choose to do that. You could also in here show the binder and then change it slightly with showing collections or layouts or whatever you need to do. Now, I tend to work with the binder and with the inspector, but I do different things in the middle. Now, we've already seen that you can switch from your main view here, which is viewing the subdocuments. I call that Scrivening's view. You can switch to your corkboard view. You can switch to your outline view, and you're getting different views all the time. You can also do other things. Now, my screen at the moment is set to 1920. Normally, it's 4 times that size. So I can do this and retain the fact I can see everything by splitting the view. And sometimes it is very helpful to split the view. You have this option over here, which is to toggle the split on and off. So if I toggle the split, it shows me 2 copies of the outline view. Not great. But if I move across to the left-hand one, what I tend to do on the left-hand side is view the Scrivenings. And that way, as I select something here, I've got an overview of what's going on in my outline. At that point, I probably could turn the binder off. And this is why you've got complete control over how it all works. I could make that much smaller and show less. I could make that smaller and show more of my outline. I could also, in my outline, maybe I don't want to work in outline view. Maybe I want to work in corkboard view. And if I turn my binder back on, now I've got the best of all three worlds. And I can still see my information. So what we're doing here is changing the view that we're looking at. Now, in addition to changing this view, what I can do, if I want to toggle off this, is I click the button on one side or the other, and the one I click is the one that I keep. So if I split that again, they're both the same. If I come over here, change that to the outline view, and choose something at a top level so I've got information, you can see that I have the button on the left and the right. If I hit the one on the left, I'll keep the scrivenings. If I hit the one on the right, I'll keep the outline. It gets better than that. I always tend to have a vertical split, but if what you're working on demands a horizontal split, if you hover over that, it will eventually tell you that if you option click, you can change the type of split. So instead of having it vertical, now I've got it horizontal. So if in the top I want my actual text, I can do that. My outline's at the bottom. And then, same procedure. If I want to keep the outline, I hit the button at the bottom. If I want to keep the scrivening, I would hit the one at the top. You should also be able to see that that button has now permanently changed. So it's a choice between horizontal or vertical until you hold the option key down and split it a different way. And then it will remember that split. So you can see a line going up the middle of it. I love those views. I love having my progress, my outline on the right, and my actual text on the left. I probably could do without the binder, but I tend not to, because what I tend to do is also turn on my collections. Now, collections is beyond what we're doing today, but it's just another view option that I could choose. So I'm going to set up a view here that would be my preferred view, which would be, let's say, all of that. I would like that. Now, the problem is with that, once I've gone through and I've set all of that, how do you keep that? And that is what we're looking at next, but not before we've examined full screen view and composition mode. So full screen view means on the Mac that it opens as a full screen app. So I go to view and I have my two options here, enter full screen and enter composition mode. So going to full screen makes this app full screen. Now, I reckon there's Windows users thinking, oh, where's the menu gone? Got to agree with you. It's at the top. So I have to hover at the top. And when I do, I finally see the menu. You can control that in the system preferences. So in your system settings, you can control that. But it's a system level thing that's going on there. So let's go back to view and let's exit full screen view. Now, another thing that I have is, let me make this a bit smaller. So if I have this something like that, or maybe even like that, and I want it to fill the screen, but I don't want full screen view, I have an app for that called Moom, but you could also use Raycast or any Windows management software. I use Control and F, and it takes the window of the app, the full screen that I have, but not full screen in terms of losing the menu. So that's an app external to Scrivener, but can be quite handy for Scrivener. Right, but what if you want composition mode, which is the old full screen that Scrivener's had for years and years? That's something entirely different. We go to view, you go to composition mode, and it switches to this view. It tells you that typewriter scrolling is enabled, which means it keeps it in the middle of the screen. Where you're typing is always going to be in the middle of the screen. So I'm just going to say yes to that because that's not really what I'm interested in. This is a full focus mode, as you can see. But if you move to the bottom, you do have a lot of options here. So first off, if you want to scale the text, make that much bigger or much smaller, you can do that. I have mine set to 125. You can also move the paper position, which means you can move it across to the left or the right or have it in the middle with a gap. You can do that. You can also choose the width of the paper. So if you want the paper to be wider, you can. If you want it to be much narrower, you can. You might wonder why on earth you would make it that narrow. There is a reason. No, don't rule it out yet. We might persuade you. Then you've got in here the inspector. So you can see the inspector, which is the synopsis and the notes that we usually have on the right-hand side. You can choose to see that. You can edit the synopsis, you can add notes, you can change your labels, and you can change your status, all from there, and you can close it. You can also in here choose what you see. These options being the options you usually see in the docked inspector on the right-hand side. So that is your inspector. You can also choose to go to, and this gives you navigation that you would normally have in the binder. You can choose to focus on the middle, you can have the typewriter view. You can even bring up your keywords. So here are those keywords that we added a few demos back. Now, there's a couple of other things that you can do here. So let's get rid of that. And let's go across and see the background. So you can actually fade the background in and out. If you wanted to see your desktop, you could do that. If you wanted to. You can also from here come out of that view. Now, they are the view options that you have for that composition view. But in my opinion, they've missed one of the greatest options that you have in there. So what I'm doing on my other screen is finding my backgrounds. Right, so at the moment, the weather here, I don't know about you, but the weather here is pretty warm where I am. If I were writing this novel that's set on Christmas Eve, the weather really isn't conducive. But what you can do in here, you can go to Project and Project Settings. So you're only setting this for this particular project. And you have an option for background images. And you can set a custom background for your composition view, your composition mode. So let's say that I want to choose from disk, and what I actually want to do is in here. So these are my view options and my backgrounds, and I've got some Christmas views here. So this is nice and Christmassy. If I was looking at this, I'd feel far more inclined to be writing about Christmas. So I'm going to choose that one. That's it. That's all I have to do. I'm showing you this because it's not where you would think it would be. It's at project level. You then go back to your view and enter composition mode, and now it's all Christmassy. That's why you might want to have a narrower page width and move it. So now I've got this lovely view of Christmas. I adore Christmas. So this would thrill me. And I can carry on working over here. I can also have my keywords if I want them. I can open those. And I can open my inspector and put that somewhere out of the way. I could even put these inspectors on the other screen. I've literally just dragged that off to the right, to the left, and I've got one on the right as well. So I could drag them off onto other screens and look at my Christmas view. Conversely, of course, maybe it's Christmas and you're writing a summer thing. Let's go back into project settings and choose a different one. And we won't have Christmas this time. We'll go to, how about the beachfront? We've got lovely beachfronts there. That's a nice beachfront. Let's go for that one. So again, you're swapping it at project level. And then when you go into view and composition mode, there you go. So you could be writing in deepest winter, but you're writing the latest episode of Murder in Paradise. There you go. Which might seem a bit gimmicky at first, but I can see if it's a different season or you're looking to be inspired. That's actually quite nice. All the other things that you can do, you can still do in here. So you can change this and have the background showing through whatever else you need to do. And that is composition mode. Right, let's head off and back into here. Right, so we're coming now on to saved views. So when I showed you the view options before composition and full screen, there's a lot that you can change. And whenever you have an application that's like that there's a lot that you can change in it, it's great if you can save that and switch between one set of saved settings and another set of saved settings. And that you can do. Originally, when this feature was first introduced, there were no defaults, but now your layouts options, you do have two different sets. You have a set that's available in your layout options, and I'll show you those. But you also have some, and these are default settings that come from Scrivener in your interface. So let's go and have a look at that. So they are, keeping up here. I am going to saved views, which are layouts, and then you will find them under Window, Layouts. And within there, you'll see the option to manage your layouts, but you'll also see layouts that you can apply. So these are all the ones that are there by default. These three you will see when you go into Manage Layouts, and those are the three that are in there. Now, before I do anything, I quite like this layout. So I'm not going to change the layout at this stage. I'm going to go to Window, Layouts, Manage Layouts, and I'm going to make this one reusable. I'm going to save the layout. So add a layout based on the current window. That's exactly what I want to do. I'll call this one Dual Pane, although it is actually a lot more than that. And you have the option to say save the outliner and corkboard settings and whether you want to preserve all the metadata appearance. So I'll say yes to those. And that is now saved. What I can then do is go to my window layouts and I can have a look at what these others are. So that's the default view. Let's go back to layouts, and there's a 3-pane view, and it's giving me information about this. So now what I've got over here is my outline here is showing me my synopsis. Next to the binder, now that's really weird for me because I always have that on the right, and my main scrivening area is now on the right. What else have we got in here? I've got the editor only, which has turned off everything apart from the editor. I have also got in here corkboard only. So if I just want to quickly look at the corkboard, I can do that. And I can add synopsis from here, whatever I need to do. Back to window layout. So I've got the centered outline. Now, this one is slightly different than the normal outline in terms of it's actually centered the title within the width that it has. So if I move this, that moves with it. I can't ever see me using that layout, I must admit. And then I've got my dual navigation. Now, what this has done is it's opened an extra editor, which is a quick editor. This is my main Scrivenings view, but this is a quick editor that it has opened. And I can actually pop that out if I want to. So I could here see two different things if I wanted to. So you have a lot of options when it comes to views. At this point, what on earth did I have it set to? What was my preference? I probably wouldn't be able to remember. It'd probably take me 20 minutes to set it up again. Hopefully, if I go into my layouts, you can see that I had my dual pane there. And in my manage layouts, I had my dual pane as well. And to apply that, I'm going to hit use and it takes me back to exactly where I was. So that is a huge time saver. If you find yourself constantly rearranging the interface or you have a preference for your interface, then that is a great way to work. I do bother to set those up all the time, particularly in the map bytes file because there's a lot of information that I'm working with. So that is saving your layouts to save yourself a ton of time. We have 2 left. We're moving on to templates. Now, I said at the beginning, templates. Yes. When I talk about templates, most people think of a starting point for a file. And I think 99% of people would instantly think, yes, it's a starting point. But there are 2 different options here. We have file templates, which you have actually already seen, and we have internal templates. And an internal template you will get from Project New from Template templates. But don't be surprised if you try this and get absolutely nowhere, because there are none by default. There are potentially some if you use a template, but if you start from a blank file, you may well find you have no internal templates at all. So what's the difference between these things? Well, a project level template is an outer container for everything inside your Scrivener file. So a project level template can contain anything and everything that's part of your project. And that includes your internal templates. Your internal templates are stored within Scrivener files inside each individual file. If you use the novel project templates, for example, like I did, you may find that you have internal templates for characters, locations, chapters, or parts of a novel. My course creation template that I made has in it specific templates for lessons, demos, downloads, and quizzes. It's all up to you. So let's go and have a look at how that magic works. Now remember that this file was created from a template which was the novel template. So I'm tidying up my view a bit so you're not overwhelmed with the view. Right. It started automatically with a novel format scrivening explaining how this worked. It had a place for the manuscript. It had a place for the characters. These are the characters. It also had a place for places. So Scrooge's office, Scrooge's house, Fezziwig. And these are very handy to have if you're particularly writing a novel. It also has front matter. If you're writing a novel and you're going to produce a PDF at the end or an EPUB, you're going to need front covers and dedications and all other kinds of things. And that is the original front cover from A Christmas Carol. I had created a title page, there's a copyright page, you name it, it's all in here. Other files would not look like this, but this one has a research folder and it has something called template sheets. When I look at what is inside the template sheets, these are your internal templates. And there was a character sketch, that's what that looked like. And there was a settings sketch, which is your places. And they are stored in a special folder. In this case, it's called template sheets. You can call it what you like, doesn't matter. But how it works is, if I'm going to write something here, I mean, in fact, with the two that I have in here, it would make sense for places and characters. So let's say I wanted to add another place. What I can do is right click and you get the add option, and you get the option to add another scrivening or a folder or from a template, this being an internal template. You have character sketch, setting sketch. Those were the two items that we saw in that templates folder. And the beauty of this is when you say character sketch, it gives you your character sketch, which I've put in places. Never mind. Let's go do a character sketch there. And it gives you a starting point. You can add your character. So who's missing here? Do I have anybody missing? I do. Oh, that's good. I've got the housekeeper missing. All right, the housekeeper. And I would put the role in the story, what the goal was, physical description, and so forth. It's a great starting point. It gives me consistency between all of the characters or all of the places, which is great if I've used a template. But what if I didn't? What if, when I started, I said new project, and I looked at them all and I thought, I'm going to start with a blank one. And I said create. And at that point, I need to put that in the right location. So let's stick it in demo there. Demo of templates. And save that. So I now have a completely new file. Notice what is missing here. I have a draft folder, I have a research folder, that's it. I have nothing else. So I have no way, if I come to add any templates. There are no templates in this file, but we can fix that. So here's what we do. You go to project and you go to your project settings. And what you'll find in here, we've already looked at background images, we set Christmas up for that, but you go into here and you have what's called special folders. And it says there's no template folder, and indeed there isn't, and there's no way to select one either. That's not good. But this is where you would do it. The first thing you need to do is create it. So just create a new folder. I call mine templates. That makes sense to me. And I put it underneath the trash, because I'm very seldom going to interact with this directly. Doesn't matter at this stage whether I then create a template or whether I turn this folder into a special folder. It really doesn't matter. So what I'll do is I will add a new text. I will call it character. And I'll put in here, you know, character name and other information about the character. Not the best template I've ever created, but it's there. At this stage, however, it's not a template. Simply making that folder and making the character scrivening doesn't do it. I can't go to draft and say add and say new from template. There's still no magic happening. This is because we need to go to project settings, special folders, and now we have a folder available. Now it's giving us two. That's great of it, isn't it? Let's just choose templates and hope that there is only the one. What happens at that stage is that template gets a special icon with a T on it. Anything that happens to be inside it, like this, gets another special icon with a very tiny T on it. And this is now a proper template. So if I go up to add and I say new from template, I can add a new character at that point. There's my character. I can name them and I can go in here and I can edit it. If I want to create another template for a place, I can go in here and just add a scrivening. You'll notice it's already got the icon. We'll call that place, location, whatever you want to call it. Let's put location. Let's put weather and so forth. That is all I need to do. Because I've placed this inside this special templates folder, it is a template automatically. I can go and add, and when I select choose from template, I have character and I have place. When I put it in, I can call that whatever I like, and I have my information. What do I use this for? I don't tend to write too much in the way of fiction, although it has been known. For me, with the podcast, it's things like backbites and iPhone. They all have pre-configured meta in there and information in there. And you can take that to the nth degree. In fact, if you had something, so we would definitely have this. We would have a MacBites. We'd have an intro to MacBites. We'd have the outro to MacBites, so the iPhone. Right, this is what I do. So in my MacBites file, I've gone to add, and I've said add a new folder. Notice folder. And I would call that MacBites, and then inside there, I would add, so let's say backbites, which is the first section. We'll have an iPhone bit. That's probably a really bad idea because I've got to type it 3 times. Right, and we'll have an outro to that as well. So, a wrap up. Right, let's say that is my MacBites. Notice what it did. It put that outside of the template. But I want this whole folder to be a template. I don't want to individually create these as templates. No, I want the whole thing. What I would do with the MacBites thing, I would have metadata inside of that as well. At the moment, if what I wanted to do was make a new MacBites episode, can't do that. So if I go here to add, no MacBites as an option. But if I just drag the entire folder into my templates folder, all of that is now a template. And I would then fold this up. I would be in here and say, okay, let's have a new MacBites. Click the folder. What's the next show, Mike? I've completely lost track. Let's call it 190. And if I open that up, you can see inside it, I have my backbites, my iPhone, and my wrap-up. So you can build very complicated templates here. Remember, they are internal templates. They're starting points for part of your work, not the whole of your work. But they are incredibly useful. The trick is either starting with a template that already has them, or creating your own from the project settings and setting up your special folder in there. If you can actually use Scrivener and not be concerned about these project settings, but you would take your use of Scrivener to the next level by going in here and having a good look through it and see what options you've got, because it makes everything a whole lot easier. And remember, everything that's in here is on a project by project basis. Okay, we are moving on to the last part. Now, I can't do the Scratchpad justice in 5 minutes, but what I can do is show you how it works, what you can use it for, and introduce you to it. So the Scratchpad is where you would capture your ideas. So imagine that you are working. Now, you could be working in Scrivener at this stage, Or you could be working elsewhere. Maybe you are working in Excel or whatever. And you get an idea. And the process goes like this. Break off from what you're doing. Navigate to a folder. Add a new item, having worked out what template you should use. Give that item a title and then add the information. Yeah, the information you've probably forgotten by that stage. But what if you could do all of that with just one shortcut key and then put the information in? And that is what the Scratchpad is for. So let's have a look at the Scratchpad. Right, it doesn't really matter which file I use for this. The Scratchpad is totally separate. So if I go to Window, we have Show Scratchpad. Now, Mike and I had fun before I started with this because I said, what's the shortcut key on Windows? The shortcut key on a Mac is missing in action. It used to have a shortcut key, and then they changed the shortcut key, and now there's no shortcut key. It's gone. But we can fix all of that. But you can bring it up by saying Window, Show Scratchpad. And this is the Scrivener Scratchpad. Yours is probably going to be blank if you've never used it. But you can see in here that mine has content in it. This is because I've made an entire course on the Scrivener Scratchpad. More on that shortly. So it's got text in it. You can see it's got images in it. It has character notes, although there's not much in there. There we go. Ebenezer's got some. Has Fred? No, Fred hasn't, but Fred House has. Then I've got a great idea that I've added, and Keeping Christmas and so forth. Other shows for MacBites, Marley's Ghost, there's all sorts in there. But in terms of accessing this, at the moment, on Windows, you do have a shortcut key. I believe this is the default now, and it does work, which is Alt and Shift and Return. It works on Mike's, so hopefully that will work on yours. Alt and Shift and Return. On the Mac, you don't have that. If you don't want to set up a shortcut key, you will find the Scratchpad from Windows Scratchpad. If you want a faster way of working than that, there is a universal key on the Mac, which is Command-Shift/. It's the same in any application, Command-Shift/. That will show you the Help menu and focus the search box. I can start typing Scratchpad and it will show me all of the menus within Scrivener that has the word Scratchpad in it. Normally there'd only be one, but you can see I have created a course on that was on Skillshare. And I can move down to Show Scratchpad, which is the one on Windows, and I can press Enter. And I don't need to use the mouse to go get it. I can use a shortcut key. That's the first way to do it. As I say, that shortcut key is available in 99.9% of Mac applications. It's one to remember. But I've started to move away from using it. You're wondering why. Sometimes it breaks. Affinity are classic for breaking it. And if you rely on that all of the time, and then in this particular iteration of Affinity, it's broken, you'll drive yourself mad quickly. Luckily, there is a free application for the Mac called Raycast, which replicates this. So if I bring up my Raycast, and yes, this is going to be available for Windows within the next few months, I can type what I want, but there's an even faster way than that, which is I use a special shortcut key, and it takes me straight to search menu items. Now, I can get to there in the standard way that I would use that, search menu items, and do that. But because I want this to work quickly, I've set up a dedicated key for it. In keeping with the Windows one, Shift Command / I've just added the Option key. And that takes me straight there. If I now type Scratchpad, you can see Windows Scratchpad is an option. And in this case, it hides it because it's a toggle. But what I can do is bring it back with the same shortcut key. Once you start using that, you'll use it everywhere. But it's still not as good, is it, as having a shortcut key inside Scrivener if that's how you choose to work. This is a little bit, I mean, it's not that complicated, but it may be that you've never done it. The one benefit of giving this a shortcut key is when you go to Window and you see Scratchpad, hide or show, you will see the shortcut key next to it, like this, like this, like this, but there isn't one for the Scratchpad. And you cannot set that on the Mac inside Scrivener. you must do it at system level. So let's do it. You go into your system settings. Inside your system settings, you go to keyboard. Oh, do you remember when this was, when you could navigate it? Right, there it is. So let's get this out of the way a bit. And you click on keyboard shortcuts. Again, this is overkill, but just ignore everything apart from what I'm showing you to use, which is app shortcuts. You can see in here, I don't have any shortcuts in any applications that I have configured. But there is one that works in all applications, the one I've just shown you. Show the help menu, Shift, Command, /. But this one, I just want to work in Scrivener. Or do I? Well, I do want it to work in Scrivener. I don't know that I want it to work anywhere else. Let's set it to Scrivener, and that way we should see it. So I'm seeing a list of everything I have installed, and I'm choosing Scrivener. It now needs the menu title. Now, the menu was window, wasn't it, if I spell it right? You do have to spell it right. Right, it was window. But I think I actually have to put it in there as show Scratchpad. Like that, which I think is what it is. Let's just check. Is it? It's show and hide Scratchpad. Yes, there's no ... after it. If there is, you need to include that. So let's get back to our system settings. Show Scratchpad inside Scrivener. Right, it doesn't like that at the moment. It doesn't like it because there's no keyboard shortcut. So I will put in here a keyboard shortcut. Oh, this is horrific. I might choose something that's something else. Let's do that. I've put a hideous shortcut key in, but we'll do it anyway. Now you can see I have Scrivener and it says show Scratchpad. And okay. And hopefully when I do that, it brings it up. That would be nice, wouldn't it? And it's not doing it. Oh, show Scratchpad. But it should be working. You can see it there. It has set it. It just isn't working at the moment. I might need to... Oh, there we go. It's working now. There we go. So it works. Personally, I don't bother. The reason that I don't bother setting that up for the Scratchpad is I would use the menu search. It's much faster. It's the same in every application. And that is set up at Raycast level, which synchronizes to the cloud, so it works on all my computers. How I've just set the shortcut key up for that will only work on this computer, unfortunately. But the Scratchpad enables you to capture your ideas really quickly. So that says great idea. So let's do more Scrivener training. Is a great idea. And I can now send that to a project or work with it, come back to it. You see here, I've got send to project. And it's showing me all I've got open. And the one I've got open at the front is demo of templates. And I can choose to append it to something that's already there or import it as a subdocument of something. So let's say I want it in the draft folder. And what happens there is it remains in my Scratchpad, but it has added my great idea to here. It's added it as a new scrivening and it's added the content of that to it. And the reason that it's smaller is that's set to 100. I usually have it at 125. And that is just scratching the surface of what you can do with the Scratchpad. But as I say, you can do a whole lot more with it. The thing with the Scratchpad is you can access it as long as Scrivener's running without Scrivener being focused. So I could have Scrivener running in my system tray, not using it. I'm searching the web with Vivaldi or something else, come across an idea, use my shortcut key, go and put the idea on the Scratchpad, and then when I go into Scrivener later, I could have 10 or 20 ideas in there that I can then file in various places. But as I say, the Scrivener Scratchpad is such a good feature, and it's got so many features that I did an entire course in it. But first, let's have a recap. Right, the 7 things that I covered. Metadata, snapshots, why they're sometimes better than full backups, colours and all the places that you can apply them, view options, and there were a lot of view options, including full screen and composition mode, where we changed the weather. Oh, I'd much rather be staring at a Christmas tree and snow today. Then we had saved views, which we created layouts from. Then there were templates, not just file project templates, but individual granular level templates inside your files, and then the Scratchpad. Now, as promised, yes, the notes for this. I'll be putting the link in shortly, but when you go and you download that, it's totally free. You're taken to a page, it gives you some information, you just download it from there. But it will also, once you've done that, mention this, which is my Scratchpad course. This is, I think it's about 45 minutes of videos. There's about 13 of the videos, and it takes you step by step through everything that you can do with the Scratchpad. I will actually show you this right now. So let me come out of there and swap to a browser. Let's see that. This is the actual course itself. So this is what you will see. I'm showing it you because it's on offer at the moment. It is the princely sum of $7. Can't say no there, can you? So what you'll find in there is all of the videos. You'll click the videos and you will have a video to play, and you will have the notes underneath that. And you'll be able to get that later today. So let's hair off back into there. Mike's going to put the link in, aren't you, right now? That's the QR code for it, but you will find that at elainegiles.com/scp-products/start-smart-in-Scrivener. And I think that's got about 20 odd pages of stuff in there. Pretty sure it has. Right, so I'll leave that there long enough for you to download it. I'll open Mike's mic. We may have questions at some point. And then I'll just do a very quick what we have coming up, because next week, this is relevant to downloading this Start Smart in Scrivener, because next week I will be showing you how I made that Start Smart in Scrivener from blank page to polished layout. Everything. We'll start from file new, and it'll all be blank. So that is next week. It is Saturday, not Sunday, Saturday. This is because we've got a match on Sunday, isn't it? The last match of the season next week. And it will be the same time, 3 o'clock, but Saturday. There is a thumbs up icon there. It always helps if you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. There's also a subscribe option, which is lovely if you want to choose to subscribe. You can't leave comments while we're live, but you can leave comments once we've finished. So do contemplate going back, leaving any comments and questions that you might have. And thank you for being with us. That is where you will find me. You'll notice Twitter's disappeared. I do occasionally post on Twitter, but you will find me on Blue Sky. Blue Sky's lovely. Last night I noticed how nasty it was on the Eurovision Song Contest on Twitter, so I headed off to Blue Sky where it was lovely. So you'll find me there. And that is it. Having said that, I'm about to go into Q&A. So if you've got any questions, you've asked questions or whatever, hang around. But if not, if you're not interested in questions, thank you for being with us, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Right, so questions. What have we got in the way of questions? Have you gathered them all, Mark?
Yes, Tracy wants to know if this is a new course. Mr. T distracted me.
Naughty, naughty Mr. T. No, this is a course that I made a couple of years back, and it was on Skillshare. I don't think it made it to Udemy, but Skillshare and Udemy, not using them anymore. So all my courses from now on will be on Elaine Giles, and this is one that I have ported across. Test the system out. We've been very busy, haven't we, for the last 5-6 weeks?
We have indeed.
Testing it all out, and hence the price. What else have we got?
Jamie says, I know how to do it, but can you demonstrate turning on the view that makes Scrivenings look like a page? Just because people I know who use it always say they don't like the default view.
Yeah, you can do that. I never do it. I've got no idea where that is. Let's have a look. Probably under view. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Inspector, editor layout. No, not editor layout. Oh, text editing layout would here we go, show page view, which makes it look like a page. The reason that I don't use that, I mean, I understand where people are coming from, Jamie, but you could do with explaining to them why it's a good idea to totally ignore that. The way Scrivener wants you to work is how things look in Scrivener and how things look in the compiled or exported document are completely different. Now, they don't have to be. You could work in Scrivener in the way you'd like it printed out or exported. But the fact that you can export or compile differently is one of its superpowers. So to have it in here, and I have heard exactly the same. I need the margins wider. I need this. I need that. No, you don't, because how it looks in Scrivener, nothing like how it exports. I mean, there's things that I've created. Let me see if I can open this file. Would it be a favourite? Might be. Let's have a look. I'm going to open a file, a real file of mine. Good grief, I've got all sorts going on in here. Right, what week are we in? What day is it?
Sunday.
Right, there's one for next week. Right, so this is what I have in my file here. This is my comms file. As I say, normally it's on a much bigger screen, but let's do that. Right. So this is a mail that I'll be sending out next week. So I have my binder. It's an email. Do you think that looks anything like the email? No. No, it doesn't. That's what the button's going to look like. So that green thing with the dashed border. This is a highlight. This says, this is the URL. See you there. We've got in here, this was sent today. So this was the one that was sent today. They don't look anything like the emails. Nothing like the emails. And they're not supposed to. They're not supposed to. When that's compiled, it will look like an email. If I wanted it to be a PDF, I could have it look like a PDF. So it's the mentality with which you approach Scrivener. You need to understand. I had one the other day, which was I want a drop cap. And I want it to look right. It's Scrivener. It doesn't do drop caps. I mean, you can put a drop cap in it if you want. But then the complaint was it doesn't drop down. It stands up. That's because it's Scrivener. But when it's compiled, it will look absolutely perfect. So how you edit and how you compile, totally different. But yes, that's how you do it. That's what you can do with it. You can make it look like that if you want. But I would never do that because I know when it compiles, it won't look like that. So it's like a false sense of security. But there you go. Right, what else?
Mish says, I think I'm convinced I would like to get Scrivener.
Oh, you'll never look back, particularly if you're using Word at the moment. It can do virtually everything.
Jamie says Snapshots completely changed the way he works. He stopped duplicating scrivenings.
Actually, inside your file, that's exactly what's happening, Jamie. It's doing that itself. It's making a duplicate copy of it. And when you use a project level backup, all of your snapshots get backed up too. So snapshots are pretty amazing.
And Jamie says you're a gem.
Oh, thank you very much.
And that's it.
Is that it? Right. Oh, hang on. Although a bit overwhelming, you're going to give it a try. The thing with it is, it could be overwhelming if you did what I did at the beginning, which was, here's a list of 300 features and I've got to use every one. But you don't. It can be as simple as you like, or as complicated as you like. I put the running order for today into a Scrivener file, and I didn't do anything with it. I didn't set any styles with it. I didn't do anything with it. All I did was just take it as it was. I made 7 scrivenings and put the things I needed to remember in each one, and that was it. But I've got other files, like that comms file. That comms file goes back to time in memoriam. I mean, everything is in there, I think, since 2012. I'm thinking it was 2012. So have a look. Comms. Right, if I fold this up, you'll see how it works. Right. I do have a templates folder. I do have research, but don't think there's anything in it. I always have an inbox in most of my Scrivener files, so that's where something goes if I haven't got anywhere to put it. Then I have my admin folder, which is instructions. It's how the styles work. I mean, how do I put a button in like that? What's the style for that? You can see there is a style for that. It's button green. I've got all of these different ones. I've got all these different highlight colours. So I created all of these. But I don't need buttons in amber, green, red or any other colour either, inline or otherwise, in any other file. They only exist in here. And when they export to be a button. Then I have my content library, so things that we reuse. Then I've got this mails and posts. Now when I go into mails and posts, I have my archive of mails, which that says 2017, but I think we'll find in the MacBytes ones, they go back even further than that. There you go, 2012. I've got some that are to be dated. This was before I set the thing up. Upcoming mails are in my upcoming mails, and then I have a folder for each week. And I have the folders ready for the rest of the year already. And each one of these, when I open them, has now this isn't a folder level. In fact, this is a folder. These are folders. But I made them. The reason that they look like that is they're binder separators. And what I do is, so this one, this will be next week. I drag that out of the upcomings and I put it in the main thing there. And then when something's gone, like this one, got all of these here, you can see the mails that were sent. There we go. That would then go in the archive, 2025, week 19, just drag it in there. And that is how I organise it. So I've got this weekly folders folder, then each week has a folder, then I've got my upcomings and my archive. These are just MacBytes mails for the Advent days. And within there, you will see a mail per day. These are the colours that I have allocated to them. So you can see this is what they look like. All of the images are in there, and when I compile, those images go out with it, and it makes a mail. I just give it Mike, and he sends it. That's it. Otherwise, I just do it in here. So when Tracy was talking about Markdown, and the fact that Markdown, it doesn't support Markdown. No, it doesn't. But then it doesn't support writing mails either, but you can make it do it if you want to. If I had to write mails any other way, it used to take ages, didn't it, Mike? Because they have to be written in HTML. So if I were to export one of these mails, let's pick a tricky one. That's a tricky one, isn't it? Right. What I would do to do this is copy this, and then I would compile it. So there's File, Compile. I then choose what type of mail it is. Now this one would be a MacBytes mail. And this is what does the magic. Right, I've got my Scrivener course mail, slide deck. You've got lots of other different mail formats in this file because this is the comms file. But this is a MacBytes mail. So I choose that. And what it's going to do behind the scenes that I used to have to do by hand is if I edit the format and show you, it's going to do some transformations with things. It's going to add markup to it. It's going to do replacement. It's going to do all kinds of things, including that. This is the beginning of the document that I used to have to add by hand. This is the end of the document. So in this end bit here, you'll see MacBytes and the address, and this is HTML. So if you're familiar with HTML, there's a H2 and a P with a class, etc. All of that I don't need to worry about anymore. I did it once. I put it in the compile settings, and then I compile it. At this point, it's going to the comms folder, but I'm going to stick it over here so I can open it straight away. So I'm going to stick it in my Christmas folder. And that is my mail exported. Why have you not put that there? Oh, never mind, it's working. Right, this is what the mail then looks like. So it opens automatically. You can see it's in my Dropbox projects folder. There's the mails. There's the button. Button's clickable. There's the important bit. Here's the headings. They looked nothing like that. They were not orange. They did not have a line on the top in Scrivener. And this is what I mean when Jamie says people want it to look the same. It shouldn't look the same. I couldn't have it look the same. We didn't even have that in Scrivener. That was added on the way out with the compile. And that is how the mails are made. It's an absolute doddle. But it looks nothing like that in Scrivener. It looks as near as I can get it in Scrivener. But it's enough. I can see the graphics. I can see that that's a button and that's going to be important. These headings are just going to be orange. I could make them orange in here. But why would I? Because if I make this, which is a H3, orange, it's going to look ridiculous if I'm editing a VIP mail, which doesn't use orange. MacBytes uses orange. So everything changes. Everything is set on the output. So you can do whatever you like in here. So I wouldn't be in the slightest bit concerned about what it looks like, nor the format, to be honest, because I can take that and turn it into HTML. So there we go. So yes, that's how you would do that. Let's go back to that. And have we got any more questions?
Jamie's asked about compile, but I found him a link. in a video that you did.
Did I do a detailed video of compile? I did. Was it one of the Patricias?
The one
Or
I've
Patience?
the one I've linked to was the Scrivener 3 for Mac 7 years ago.
Probably not. No, I did it in After Hours.
Oh.
Right, the challenge was, it was either Patience or Patricia who was entering a competition for something that was written. And there were rules as to the format that had to be submitted. And she was writing it in Scrivener. And the rules were things like, every paragraph needed a 1/2 inch indent apart from the first one of a chapter, and the chapter heading had to be 3 inches down from the top of the page. So there was all these requirements that were needed. So she sent me the requirements, and I went through the requirements one by one. There was font requirements and size, all sorts, margins, you name it. I went through every one and wrapped it up in a compile setting, and that way, if she wanted to write in purple Times New Roman, she could do. But if it needed to be exported as, Arial, that was fine too. You can write however you choose and then compile to a completely different format by keeping the compile settings separate. Now, when I say separate, compile settings are within your project, but you can have multiple ones. So you've just seen I've got compile settings for the VIP list, for Mike's email list, for MacBytes. The final output looks different in all of them, but the compile settings live within the same file. So you make your email and then just compile using wherever it's going to. You can take your compile settings from one project file to another, but most of the time, it wouldn't make any sense to have a mail output in a novel. But you might want a proof copy and a final copy. You might want a printed copy and an ebook copy. So compile settings exist within an individual file, but you can copy them between files if you need to. I wish I could remember if it was Patience or Patricia. I get confused with the P's.
It could be After Hours 149.
There you go, you see. I definitely remember doing it. That was a bit of a challenge. I think we'd done Scrivener for a while, and we had covered compile. But obviously me covering a compile that would generate one thing, if somebody else wants something totally different on the compile, they may not know how to set that up. I mean, if you were to look at the compile settings, they go on for pages. Pages and pages and pages and pages. Obviously, if you're working to a set standard, which we were with this one, I knew exactly what to set. So it was the challenge of, would the final output be good enough to submit? Would it match the format that was needed exactly? And yes, it did. So that's how we did it.
Try 149, Jammy. Somewhere in there. I'm trying to find the link to the exact place.
I can probably put the link in. Well, I can put the link into 149. Probably not the exact place of 149.
Oh, I've got it now. There it is.
Shall we see that?
Interesting.
Right. Bring this back and back by. Oh no! It was After Hours, wasn't it? After Hours 0149. Does that work? Does it take us to the right? No, it doesn't. Oh no. Why is 149 missing from there, Mike?
From where?
From MacBytes.
I have no idea.
That's alarming. I'll leave you to work that out. I have no idea why that's not working. It should be working, but it wasn't. Might be able to find it on YouTube.
I put a link into it in YouTube. Jammy says I have a great memory.
Right, let's do it this way. Let's try MacBytes After Hours.
Try 150 as well, Jammy.
149. Is that going to get us there? I've got 194. Do you know when you put the number in? Seriously, you're not going to go up. Unbelievable. No, I'm afraid I can't actually get to it that fast. There you go. But it's there.
149, 150.
I think what we did the first time was generics, and the second time was get this compile thing that matched Patricia or Patience's requirements. I think that's what we did with it. But don't be
did it. We did it in 151 as well.
We probably did. It probably went on for weeks.
Yeah.
Don't be overwhelmed with Scrivener. Just start really basic. And what you'll find happening is, as you start putting your information in, you'll probably think, oh, it would be nice if I could keyword that, or I want to put a status on that. And then just add the features in as you go. You can always, like with keywords, if you start off and you have like basic keywords all at one level, you can restructure them later. So you saw me do that. Just don't try and use everything all at once. Don't try to go for crazy complex compiles. I once spent 3 days doing a compile, but it was worth it because at the end of it, what I ended up with was 3 compiles for courses. One actually exported a CSV file, which is a text-based file, of just the meta information, including the URL of the video. And what happened then was I was able to take this CSV file and just push it into a website, and a course appeared on it. Hence it taking 3 days. It had to be tested, made sure that down to the last full stop it worked, because it was going to be automated to that degree, but it was worth it. There's no way I would have started something like that probably in the first 2-3 years I was using Scrivener. I think by the time I came around to that, I'd been using it about 6 or 7 years. I knew it was probably capable of it, but even I hadn't tried it at that point. So use what you need as it as you go along. Get stuck, send me a question. Right, was that it? Do we have that? Oh, Karen's going to have fun trying it out. That's great. Let me know how you get on with it. Love to see what Jammy sorts out as well. What are you using it for? Was this your thesis? I think we touched on compiling one of those videos, but I think the time we really deep dived it was an after hours. Right, okay then, if that's it and we have no more questions, we can head off, because I'm looking forward to an ice cream. Don't know about you.
Go and get something to eat.
Well, I had lunch, but I didn't have an ice cream. So what I'll do with this video is I will leave it up there as is, but I will put timings underneath it. People moan, don't they? If you don't start within the first 2 seconds, you hear all about it. So I will put the timings up for that, although I'll probably have a 4K version of my own as well, because I can. Well, I'll say because I can. It's recording as far as I know, but that doesn't mean it's recording, does it? So hopefully when I've finished, I will have a recording of that. But do join us next week. Make sure that you download that file, the freebie, today, because that is what I will be making next week. So have a look at it in the week. And if you've got any questions about how I did specifics in it, you'll be in the best place to ask those questions. But for the moment, I'm going to say goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.